This Hangout on Air is live.
There we go.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, my name is Brendan Dwyer. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Joining us. I'll introduce our speakers, Barbara Sawhill and Ryan Brazell. They're going to talk to us. You guys know the title. It's going to be interactive, I hear.
Yes.
We'll probably go until 11:05, so maybe 40 minutes.
Cool.
No problem at all.
Great. All right. Did you want to?
So I do. You both have devices of some kind. Do you have an app of some kind that you can record audio with that you know of?
No, I mean, I don't have a.
Okay, so one thing, so if you've got a laptop, you might want to download, if you're okay with this, download and install Audacity. It's an open source. Yeah, if you don't already have it. You can use the voice memo app that's built into your iPhone, or you can download a different audio app. But in the second half of this, after Barbara goes through the storytelling part of the interactive, we're actually going to ask you to record some audio. Okay. So just take a couple minutes before the end of her talk to figure that out, and that'd be awesome.
Cool. So are either of you, since we are a small enough group, we can sort of figure out where people are coming from. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what interests you in this.
I love analog and as digital as we are. I love analog. I love radio. Lifelong listener of radio music. My background is in the arts, visual arts. Also very engaged with digital media.
Okay. Yep. And are you a teacher now? Or are you
actually an adjunct faculty with the Robertson School of Media and Culture?
Okay. So adjunct faculty, magic.
And my role here at the university is communications.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Cool.
I teach in the English language program here at VCU.
Okay.
And I have tried once or twice to try to get students to do kind of digital photo story-like narratives with people out in the community.
Right.
And I'd like to look at different ways of maybe collecting audio information and different ways of putting it out there.
So are these students for whom English is a second language?
Correct.
A second language. Okay. Excellent. So
or
third or fifth or fifth. Excellent. Okay. So my situation, I will situate myself in terms of all of this, is I am a Spanish teacher at Oberlin College. I've been teaching a course there called, it's advanced or regular conversation and communication in Spanish. So if you've ever taken language courses or you've taught language courses, you know that generally the conversation class ends up being that course where everyone has a certain proficiency with the language. They've learned all the naughty bits and the tiny bits of grammar. Now is the time for them to do something, to produce something with it. And often this can take one of several turns, but in most places, it ends up being the course that's kind of the gut. It's the one that people take when they don't want to be doing language research. And often, you'll have some sort of format that is selected by the teacher. Sometimes it's focused around a textbook. Often it's focused around things like movies where you create opportunities for students to speak, but it's often the teacher that figures out what it is that the students are going to talk about, because we're thinking about ways for them basically to recycle and reformat and reuse the grammar that has been taught so they can perfect this in some way. It's also been known, in most conversation classes are known as easy A's. You go, you show up, you participate. What could be so hard about that? So about 10 years ago, when I was given the opportunity to teach this course at Oberlin, I decided to flip it on its ear a little bit and try to engage the students in a different way. The first being that at Oberlin, languages are not required. No one has to take a language, and yet most of our courses are filled to the brim. And Spanish is one of the most popular courses on the campus. Inside of that, there are students who want to use language for a variety of reasons, not just to get the degree in literature and languages or culture or read poetry, etc. They're wanting to use the language in active ways, be it activism, be it study, be it travel, be it being able to talk to a family member, being able to talk to a boyfriend or girlfriend. They have a reason for learning the language. So one of the things I did was flip the course and say, rather than me telling you what we're going to do in this class, you're going to tell me what you want to get out of this class. And I'm going to help you craft a sort of personal learning path to make that happen. So each student engages in a project, each student engages in some sort of learning path, let's call it that, a project during the course of the semester. That's often outside of the class. While we're inside of the class, we spend some time talking about how we all got to where we are. We all understand we're in the same sort of space in terms of our language abilities, what we've learned, et cetera, but how are we gonna shape what we do together? And this is where radio came in. I found over the past few summers, I have been increasingly interested in radio that's being produced now. And it's not just radio you get on your car radio. There's radio in quotation marks that can come through your computer, can come through your phone, is thanks to a network. A side story, I live in Ohio, my family lives in Maine. I spend a lot of time in my car. So there are lots of things that I download and listen to because I get tired of, even though I do have satellite radio, I get tired of America's Top 40. And I sometimes just can't listen to NPR all that much. So one site that I discovered as a Spanish teacher was this wonderful site called Radio Ambulante. And Radio Ambulante was started 3 years ago by a couple who really wanted to do with the Spanish language what This American Life, Radiolab, other stories of that kind of genre were doing on NPR. And they wanted to tell Latin American stories in Spanish from anywhere in the world. What they found was there are lots of stories about Latin America in public radio, in podcasts in general, in digital audio. But often for the audiences that they're directed towards, the Spanish is scrubbed out and there are voiceovers. And so the idea was that you lose a whole lot when you're listening to an interview about somebody in Spanish and then scrub that out. You scrub out the emotion, you scrub out the nuance. So let's see what would happen if we did this entirely with the same sort of professional long-form radio ideas as places like Radiolab, but do it entirely in the Spanish language. And it has over, I can't remember what the numbers now are, but it had started with a Kickstarter grant of something like $40,000 and has grown and grown and grown. And it has now has alliances, allegiances with places like Radiolab. They've started co-producing things. They're working with PRI, et cetera. What I loved about this was these are, I think NPR calls them your driveway moments. This was my New York State moment. When I'm driving across the state of New York in my car, these podcasts last for about 15 minutes, and they are totally and amazingly compelling. And telling you stories that, yeah, you could read on BBC News or you could read on the New York Times, but you actually hear the voices, and they're not overly produced. They're not, they're intimate in a way that only radio can be. And it got me thinking about how amazing, how drawn in just the sound of the human voice, how compelling that was. And I wondered, as I was listening to these stories, I thought, number one, these are the kinds of things I want my students to be able to hear. This is when we think about culture in a language class, this is what I'd like to have my students think about in terms of culture, because I believe wholeheartedly my job as a language teacher is not to keep them inside of the bubble. It's to prepare them for what's out there. Hey there. And to allow them to have the opportunity to engage with some of these voices, with some of these ideas, with some of these people, and have conversations in the classroom about that. So that jump into the real world, which many of them will be doing right after they leave my class, won't be as jarring. But I really love the format, and I really began to think about, is there a way that radio could become a part of my classroom or part of our content of our classroom and still uphold those principles that I talked about before, where my students don't have to be in my class. They are there for a reason, and often it's a very personal reason. And a question, and they're not often asked why that is. So in addition to having their personal project, we started doing radio in our classroom. So what does that look like? We actually at Oberlin College have a FCC licensed radio station. It is Oberlin College and Community Radio. It is entirely student run. Every semester, groups are encouraged to, submit an application for a radio show. They get often, and it's a 24-hour radio station. So you can imagine, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, do the math, how many numbers of shows that is. Even with that amazing opening of scheduling as scheduled hours, they reject 4 times as many applications as they get. So there's a community on our campus that's often hidden because, you know, who has the 4 a.m. time slot? But there's a community of radio people on our campus, students, members of the community. As I said, there are people that come in from Cleveland who have been coming for 25 years to broadcast their show because they love radio. And we have the tower and everything. But what WABC does is it has its huge tower. It is a radio on 91.5, but I think the range is maybe 30 miles at most. But they do stream it online as well. But knowing that even though it's on the antenna and it's on the internet, I thought about the idea of my students creating stories and having that real world of experience of having to, number one, think about what kind of stories you want to tell, but also having to be a real world moment of having to sit in front of that microphone. That's terrifying for us as English speakers to sit in front of a microphone in live radio. So it involves what I look for in my class and what I try to create for them in the class are these moments where these are real world skills. These are things that challenge you, but also allow you to take risks so that your language ability will improve. Because in language learning, if you don't somehow always keep pushing yourself to a slightly higher level, it's not that you'll atrophy and die, but your learning will plateau. And you need to be, as a teacher, I feel it's my job to find ways to push and to challenge them in different ways. I say all of that and also say that yes, there's oodles of media out there right now for language teachers. There are no end to the numbers of learning management cartridges, what textbook companies for languages call super sites, these things that create audio and allow students to record or allow teachers to create content, but it's within a walled garden. It's within a very small space. What this allows my students to do is create something for themselves, but also in keeping in mind the community around them, and then sharing it to an even wider audience. So what we have been doing for the past 2 years is creating radio shows in which first we have the good fortune of having our application accepted, and then for every semester there's about 11 or 12 weeks in which we have to produce a show. The students as a group decide what the content of their show is going to be, what the theme of their show is going to be. And using tools like Google Drive, they say to their classmates, so last semester I had a class of 17, there'll be 2 DJs per show. They'll say, this week's show is going to be about stories of your first week at Oberlin, let's say. And they look to their classmates and say, each of you needs to record a 2-minute story about your first week. You can interview somebody, you can tell the story yourself, you can talk about someone else if you're not comfortable, but we need a 2-minute clip. And together, through Google Drive, they're able to pull together all of these wonderful sound files. They add music, they add sound effects, etc., and create a radio show. And so it becomes a story not only from the students, the DJ's point of view, but the class's point of view. And it's some of the most amazing production in the sense of oral production I have ever asked for. Something much more than I think a textbook prompt could ever get out of somebody. Something much more than what I possibly could come up with. Because what I find is, because it's in Google Drive, because they can listen to each other's files, the ante ups every single week. And so you'll have a student who does a really interesting topic one week, and then somebody says, ooh, but I know somebody, let's bring them into the studio and let's interview them online. So you'll have a live interview going on as well. And then up and up and up. So there's a level of support of creating this content together, of sharing knowledge and expertise as well. But there's always a constant kind of, I wonder what it would look like if we did this and did this and did this. The other piece about it that I really love is as each week they are creating content for this radio show, they can actually go back and look at those pieces and parts and say, here's what I sounded like in February, here's what I sounded like in March, oh wow, look at me over here in May. And actually one of the exercises, and I'll show you an example of this that I have them do thanks to these radio shows, is chronicle their actual learning and speaking proficiency growing, and teaching them this idea that it's not just me that can evaluate you, you can hear it in your own voice. And you can actually, you knew what was going on in your head when you were making that recording and how you felt. And I bet you remember how you felt in this recording and how you felt in that recording. Let's talk about that journey as a learner. Because as I said, my job is not just to keep you here. And my job isn't just to have you achieve the goals for this class, it's preparing you for the outside world. It's preparing for conversation and communication and presenting yourself in this other language in an outside world. So I can show you a couple of the assignments that we did. And what's really lovely about radio is that the assignments can be very scalable. I will say to you right now, when I told my students that you're going to be making an hour-long radio show every week and you know, get on your mark, your set, go. The look of panic in their eyes was like, oh my God, I have no idea how to do this. And then when we realized that it's actually little pieces of audio being sewn together with a tool like Audacity, and then teaching them how to use Audacity, it then became a much less onerous task. So one of the things I asked them to do, we can show them some of the things that you do in a radio show is you do a bumper, or you do a station ID. And because this is an FCC licensed radio station that we're working out of, we have to do station IDs every 15 minutes. So I said, what about if we do station IDs in the target language? So station IDs are when you say, this is the radio station, this is who we are, this is the coordinates. And a bumper is what you do to announce your particular show. So my students got to name their show, and the show was called Español Berlin, all one word. So we're going to play for you a couple of but first, I think let's do first the bumper, Alexa's bumper, and just show you like how simple it is and how easy it is in so many other ways, and yet the production that comes out of it. So this is Alexa doing a bumper. So through Audacity, she figured out how to do the reverb, how to add some audio, how to layer it together, and there you have it. That was maybe 10 seconds?
9 seconds.
9 seconds. So, and super simple, super fast. So what I tried to do with this project as well, understanding that speaking a language out of, you know, if you haven't done it in a while isn't a hard task. Doing radio is a hard task. I tried to scaffold these activities as best I could, knowing that radio could allow you to do that. So I'll give you an example of a station ID and a bumper. So you get an idea. It's so a little bit longer. And what I'll do is I'll finish my part of the presentation and sort of talk about, while we were doing radio, this idea of as they're going, they're actually they're producing audio over time. And I can hear them growing and advancing as well. What I did at the midterm mark, and I'm just doing now at the final mark, is ask them to then make a personal radio show for me about their progress. So we'll play just a couple seconds of one of my students. This is his. So you get a sense. So what he did was then go through and pick out pieces of, not the whole recording, but pieces that he felt were significant. And the things I learned through hearing them talk about themselves in English, about pre-recorded material, was absolutely fascinating. So my point being that you're making this thing to go on the air, to go on live, but you're also archiving some really important and wonderful information that they can then go back to and listen to once they're out of the heat and the panic of the moment of making the radio show. So what we're going to do now is, since we've sort of talked about how I did it, is we're actually going to make radio right now. And so Ryan is going to lead us through this happy event.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask each of you, actually, so do you actually have, sorry, I came in a little late, I didn't get a chance to check. Do you have a mobile device or something with you? If you don't, okay, awesome. Do you have an audio recording?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come up, we don't have a whiteboard marker, that's good. Okay, we're going to come up with a theme for our radio show. And so when by
You do, oh my God, never so prepared.
by we, I mean you all. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask each of you to record little snippets. We're gonna ask you to tell a story related to this theme, and we're also gonna ask you to make a bumper and or a station ID for what we're calling Alt Fest Radio. Barbara and I, after we'll collect these little snippets from all of you, and after today's conference, we'll put it together and broadcast it on an online radio station that anyone has access to. We'll give more details about that in a minute. But first, we need to come up with a theme. What's a theme that each of you feel like you could tell a really short 30-second story around? What are your ideas?
Something related to the conference, maybe something related to the keynote, something.
Completely unrelated. One we had in a
Food
previous
trucks.
session was like the best joke I've ever heard. So it doesn't have to be conference related. What do you think? What's something you could tell a 30-second story about?
Where you find creativity.
Okay.
Where you find
Do
creativity?
you find creativity? Do both of you think you could tell a very short story about that?
Creativity.
Or what is creativity?
All right, let's do it.
So
Okay. And so what you're gonna do, we want you to keep these really short. There you go. We want you to keep these snippets short because we want it to be sort of low barrier, low threshold, right? So use your device, whether you have a mobile device or whether you have Audacity you can record directly into. We want you to record up to 30 seconds. Keep it really short. If you go a little over, that's okay, but aim for something real short. About what you think creativity is. If you want, there's people out in the hallway probably. If you want to go interview somebody and get their opinion of what is creativity, feel free.
Absolutely.
If you want to, you can interview a moderator, you can find somebody, in addition to sort of making your own.
Right.
So files from that, you can submit, again, you can submit sort of a bumper, like the one that Barbara, or the one that we played a couple seconds ago. It's okay if you don't, like you have Audacity, you can maybe put some music in the background if you want. Otherwise, you can actually just send us raw bumpers that say, Alt Fest Radio or something. We can incorporate that into the greater show, okay? You can also send us music files if you have an interesting music file that you think would be great for this radio show. So it's basically the three of you will create some material that the two of us will then put together and broadcast. Does that make sense? So we're going to give you, 10:47, so we're going to give you about 8 minutes to get that out. So again, quick and dirty.
All that?
All that,
time, 8
yeah.
minutes, quick and dirty. It does not need to be awesome.
Do you have emails to you?
So you can either email it to me, or if you're on your mobile device, you can actually drop it to me.
Put on that.
Yeah, I'll actually bring it up here. There is a website you can go to. You can either email it to me, or you can go to this website, drop it to .me/AltFestRadio. I'll write that up here, and you can drop it there.
Oh, you leave your bag here? Sure.
Okay.
I did not have a charge.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Okay. You know what? You want to put it up?
Sure. No, I don't know that.
I will give you my laptop, and I have Audacity, and you are welcome to use that. That's right. Do you have earbuds with you?
I don't.
I do. Do you?
I have earbuds.
Okay. I'm just thinking that might help. I will not worry about this right yet. Let me get Audacity open. I think I have Audacity. Actually, you know what? It's the earbuds aren't going to be helpful. It's the mic. It's okay. You're going to be fine.
I'm good.
All right.
There you
Thank
go.
you so much.
You're very
All right.
welcome. Of course, no problem at all.
So are we still broadcasting?
We are still broadcasting.
Okay, so for all of you at home.
For all of you watching at home,
For all of you watching at home, we've just dismissed the class and they're off doing their project. So check back with us in about 8 minutes. Actually, I just turned off the mic too. So indeed, if all of you are watching at home, we've just dismissed the class, they're off doing field work, and we'll be back in a little while.
if you want to submit audio.
Oh, there we
on
go.
your computer. I'm like, look, that's the camera up there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, so if you're watching this, yeah.
The address that you want to submit audio to is dropit2.me/altfestradio. And the password is Havoc.
In fact, this gives me a great idea. I'm going out on the Twitterverse right now.
You totally should.
And,
Would now be the time that you want to go give Jim
oh God, yes.
eyes?
I need to go and harass a fellow presenter.
I don't know where it is.
11:02.
Oh, it's
could you spray this in Twitter?
Yeah, yeah, I can.
I could be totally bad and go hang out behind this window. It's
No,
like
it's
set up
okay.
like this.
Yeah, it's all right.
All right, so Twitterverse.
You're listening to Alt Fest Radio.
What's also really wonderful about radio is it's very forgiving.
Yeah, that's, we have to just accept that you'll be back to listening to you at the time if you're recording it.
This is awesome.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Like, this is really exciting. I wish we did something like this at our school.
Yeah, right?
Well, and I can't help it. My students get like totally terrified, and then once they actually get to hear, and it's like, it all lowers, and the production is just.
Well, I hope TA with the radio master had you on campus. I've worked with radio station, and they have a massive difference. You know that difference they have in the beginning of the year to the end of the
Yep.
semester. It's insane how much they turn around and improve.
Oh, it's amazing.
We used to do this in the local language.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard, and yet there's something. As I said, if you look at it as a longitudinal process, it's really happening. So.
So it's, yeah, drop it to .me/AltFestRadio and then have it as a password. Or you can email it to me if that's easier. That's also fine.
Is your email in the?
I could give you my email address.
Okay.
There you go.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you.
Creativity is giving yourself the time and place to play, make mistakes, break things down, and build them up.
Do you guys have the same time slot that was there this year? What's it change?
Well, in every semester, the schedule is set every semester, and then they do another applications because there are 4 times as many people in one spot. So they open it up again, and what they did this year, which is really nice, was they put us with a bunch of other international students, international programs. So there was a block of radio that was non-push, and then advertised as sort of the international block. Drop it to me /AltFestRadio. Did I put the password?
The password is Havoc.
Did I put that on Twitter too?
I did. You can. I mean, you can do it again, sure.
Alright, I didn't listen to my files.
That's okay.
It's all right.
Oops. Sorry, Barbara, here's your mic.
Oh, yeah.
How do you get over that? I mean,
Get over what? Hearing yourself talk?
yeah, I did a radio show with my office for a while, and I thought after like a year and a half that I would get over hearing myself. But
No, you deal with it. You never quite get over
Well,
it. I
and,
don't think.
and in a second language, it sounds even worse. It's
Yeah,
so
because then you
horrible.
have sort of the,
It's so horrible.
Yeah.
You can't, I can't believe that. And then you have the sort of out-of-body experience of like, who is that and why is she saying that? And actually, it's kind of interesting because some students can take correction better when they can talk about that other voice. And so that's what these audio portfolios did was, I can't believe this is what this person sounded, what Alex Wilder sounded like at this time, kind of thing.
So do your students have any background in broadcast at all prior?
Absolutely not. All of them had to be trained by the radio station. And they do, everybody has to be trained to have a show. And I think only 2 of them had any experience in Audacity.
And how long has it been training?
It's an hour. It's an hour. Yeah. And then I would go to the radio station with them each time they would be doing a show in case there was some sort of freak out. But it was actually,
Great idea.
it was so smooth. Here's our magic 10. Look at he's doing his jazz hands in the back of the table.
There we go.
Okay.
The one that was not show choir.
Nice, it's nice though, it's a good look.
Yes.
I think my,
There is a web radio station.
There is.
They do the same thing, they give you an hour training and
Yeah.
they'll give
there's
you.
an hour.
Yeah, pretty much. And they'll just let you listen to the microphone. That's very cool.
Are you involved?
I was, my office had a radio show a few years back, but I did not hear your voice.
I've sat in on one of the shows. Talks to Ruben.
Yeah. It was like really awesome. DJ.
So we
can do-
Yeah.
We had
So we
a
could-
conversation about it.
Announce this
Oh, yeah.
and then see how many people would submit stuff, and then by the end of the day.
You can use the,
Yeah, he's
When they said only 30 miles, like, are you kidding me? 30
Yeah.
miles?
I mean, it's not big, but it's
Yeah.
national. Yeah, it's
What do-
national.
Oh.
We share the time that you get, so you get a daytime slot, you get a nighttime slot. You're all straight. Yeah, it's still straight 20%. Which works better because our demographics at night listen to good, or UVAs and they listen to good stuff. It works really well for us right now.
I live like a mile and a half from the University of Richmond. I just have to go where I can get their radios.
Yeah, there's a really, really weak signal.
I really like it sometimes.
Yeah, no, they have good stuff. They do not have much of a stick going at all.
Yeah.
We're hoping maybe in the next 2 years,
Come in.
prove ourselves in administration. We want to.
Oh, right.
I think we have comfortable.
Great.
So these, you find out, or full line.
Awesome. Welcome back.
Hey, you're back.
Good question from Upland.
Yeah, get people talking?
Did you get it here?
Yeah, but I think I'm gonna have so many questions for you in terms of like, what do you do when someone speaks for 5 minutes and 22 seconds?
That's a great question.
And, how much time are you spending with, editing and things? When I did stuff with Movie Maker, which is what I tried to use when I did some kind of project, one of the issues was, wow, we're spending a lot of time on the technical aspect. Where's the language time? And I struggled with that a little bit. Some were more proficient than others. The ones that are proficient, they figure out and they enjoy being on the computer, no problem. But there were a number that didn't, and I can't guarantee you that my students will come with certain levels of technology depending on where they're from.
And I
that whole
totally,
balance is what I would.
so.
I'm kind of interested in your nitty-gritty
Yeah.
problem aspects of.
So I can speak to from the teacher side of it. I never ever presume that my students have the knowledge or the tools or even the recorders or phones that are network connected to the network. So I always make sure that there is a backup in some way, so that there is a recording device, a digital recorder, and we're going to give you some information as to sort of down and dirty tools that could be used for this to make it happen. But in terms of the tools, I actually made sure that my class, and we talked while you were out, we made sure there was a tour and a training session for the radio station so they knew what buttons to press, et cetera, and what to do and not to do. But in terms of Audacity, I had my class spend it, we had one class session, and we didn't use all of it, in which talking about, for this class, this is what you're going to do. You're going to record audio, and it's going to be spoken word, and you're going to maybe embellish it by adding some sound effects or adding some music. How do we do that? And it literally took 30 minutes to train them on those features, and they were proficient.
And did you require that they use Audacity so that everyone had the same
I
platform?
did not require it, but what I said to them is, this is free. It's cross-platform. I don't, because my goal is I don't want to charge, I don't want them paying for things. But I also knew there was a community, by creating this community of 18 people for whom some will get it faster than others, we could look around the room and say, all of you have to use this. I'm here to help as well, but you can also work with each other. And it's a tool that lots of people have on their machines as a fairly simple tool. It's not proprietary. I mean, it's not tied to one operating system or another. And the tutorials for it are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if you wanted to add.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think I have to add that. I mean, that's, except to reiterate that you really start by showing people sort of the most basic stuff. It's, you know, sort of like when you're asking students to do presentations. You can show them all of the PowerPoint bells and whistles, but then they get super distracted, like we all do, and sort of making things look nice, right? So it's really focusing on, here are the basics, and encouraging people that you are not gonna sound like NPR. Right, like people get paid a lot of money and spend a lot of time editing shows to sound like NPR. That's not the point. This is supposed to be quick and dirty. The focus of this is really on the language. And just keep reiterating that. And it helps if if you as the teacher are contributing to that and contributing in a way that is also really quick and dirty, that if you're making mistakes with your language, it's okay. You don't try to edit that out.
Exactly.
If you're sort of modeling that for them, it makes students feel a lot more comfortable, just like in any other type of activity.
Right.
Those are questions, y'all. We have a couple minutes left. I want to make sure we get to answer more questions that y'all have.
There are other questions about, yeah, no,
Yeah, go for it,
it's
please.
fine.
You know, what did you do in terms of then getting the music, in terms of, where did you
Yes.
deal with your copyright?
So that's an excellent question. Because we are an FCC licensed radio station, or at least these shows were going to be broadcast initially on an FCC licensed radio station. The radio station requires that we log all of our songs. And there are certain rules, like you can't play the same artist more than twice in an hour. And you need to know the publisher or the record label, all of this information. They need to know that, and they need to chronicle it within 24 hours after the show, because the artists get royalties from our station. When it comes to their own personal sound files, we had a conversation about where can you get copyright-free audio that will that you could play with all you want, because there is audio out there that is being made for exactly that reason. So freesound.org is one place. Creative Commons is the Creative Commons site is the other one. And we're gonna give you access to a handout that has all of this information on it. I have a conversation about that. Because Oberlin also has a conservatory of music, so we have people who are hopefully going to have lives as professional musicians. That's their bread and butter, is making that audio. So let's talk about what it means to create something and then not attribute and not ask, not pay, all of those things. So there are many ways in which you can find copyright-free, shareable audio that are very easy to be able to be merged into this for those snippets, for that background music kind of thing. And I encourage them to do that. Other thoughts?
So a lot of the resources that we're talking about are available. They're available both on my site and on our shared site. There's a handout that we have you can very easily print. It's got sort of the walkthrough of like what are the things you need to think about when you're doing a group radio program like this. What are some of the resources? My site is ryanbrazel.net, RyanBrazel.net, yep. And then also our shared site is languagelabunleashed.org. And Language Lab Unleashed is where mostly Barbara, there's a couple of others of us that also contribute to that site. But that's where Barbara talks a lot about the radio and her pedagogy more generally. So that's a really great site to learn some more about that stuff.
Right.
Other questions? We have 2 minutes left. Yeah, 2 minutes, okay, good. 2 minutes, yeah.
That was just peace sign guy back there.
Yep.
And other questions about using it in the classroom, other questions about, yeah. No,
Sorry.
No, it's totally cool.
But, you have 2 DJs per show, 17 students, whatever. Your show time, I'm assuming, does not always coincide with your class time.
No, and in fact, so we had to choose a time and hoped we got the right time. Prayed we didn't get 4 in the morning, because it's a 24-hour radio station. So ours was Mondays at 3 o'clock. Last time I did this was Tuesdays at 4. Not everybody can come. So we tried to first I polled my class and said, let's see if we can find a time when most of us could come. And then that was what I requested from the radio station. I had to put 3 requests. Out of 17 students, 8 could always make it. But what's wonderful about this is you could pre-record your radio show. As long as somebody's in the studio, you could have it on a drive. You could actually plug it in and play it off of a computer to the radio, have it broadcast, and also have it simultaneously cast. So they could do that work of talking into a microphone, but not necessarily have to physically be in the station.
And could you, or I don't know, maybe I can just talk to you guys afterwards, kind of see how you did it on Google Drive? I mean, I get the idea of collaboration and having the files there,
Right.
but actually putting the whole.
I'd be happy to show you what it looked like from our end. I used Google Drive. We're a Blackboard campus. And what I didn't like about Blackboard is the students could submit things, but then they would submit them to me and only to me. Google Drive was, well, so what was nice about it was if I'm saying to you, your job is to create a radio show, you ask your friends to make sound snippets, you then ride them and say, I need it by Saturday, our show is Monday. You get to see what's being submitted and then you get to pull out of it. So it's totally, anyone with access to that folder can now have access to those files and do with them what they will. But they can also keep other people accountable and say, you know, I really need your files because our show is going on Monday. And so
But then they're taking everybody else's files and then they're putting it into Audacity.
they're,
One file is that.
so if they're doing it live, they could be playing it off of their computer as an input. If they can't physically be in the radio station, they actually create a radio show in Audacity using all of those sound files.
Yeah.
Just cut and paste.
And they can be doing that, like that can be, if they're doing it off of their laptop, that could be an iTunes playlist, right? Or they could create an entire file that somebody just goes and hits.
Do they also edit, any of the content that's provided?
Yes, they would sometimes because if somebody did have a 15-minute, like they got really excited about the question, but I only wanted 2 minutes. They had the license to do that. And that's also in their audio portfolios, their midterm and their finals. I didn't want to hear the whole sound file. Show me the significant piece. Make me a radio show about you that shows me your learning. And that to me was the most brilliant part because now they totally understood, having made radio shows every week, now they could focus on themselves and about that learning piece and show me those pieces, use the editing to do that.
So I think we are out of time. So thank you. We're going to stop the broadcast, but you guys are welcome to stay and talk to us
Yeah.
afterwards.
And